All right, welcome to The Boost. I'm Steve Turney,
And I'm Sarah Way.
and we're delighted to be here today, or at least I am. I hope you're delighted.
I think I'm just as delighted. I appreciate you having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. We've been talking beforehand about marketing and mental health. It's one thing we talk a lot about. Sarah, you run marketing for MHA of the Mid-South, among, it seems like a number of other things you do for them. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I do our marketing, but I also do our mental health screenings, which is like a little online test you can take. It's anonymous, it's free, it gives you some education. It's basically a little survey to give you some info. And we've made some marketing things for it to, pass out so people can take our screening because it is a wonderful tool. But we've also just been learning, how to market better. You kind of grow. And so this pen here, if you'll notice, has a QR code in it that you can scan so you can take our screenings.
This is one of my favorite pens because it's a surprise inside. So
And it works really well. It's a great pen.
These fingers aren't always the best for this pen. However, once you get it, then it's a rolling scrolling.
Scrolls right out.
And then you have a trick of how am I going to scan this?
So then when I made it, I was like, oh, this is perfect. And then it was like, okay, will you scan that for me?
Then I'm like, here, taking a QR selfie. So the
It's not my best work.
so the point is,
So now we have stickers. So now we have
the point is that stickers are very cool.
the sticker's a little bit better.
And the scroll pin trap that might cut you slightly.
We're trying to give these away. So if you want,
Trying to give these away.
I've got probably 4,000 of them.
If you want an Egyptian scroll pin from MHA of the Mid-South, you can call me. I have one. There it is. Oh, yeah, you're very good at it. And then let it go.
I've had to practice.
It's gone like that. So
Hope you didn't need that screening.
if you have better marketing than that, let us know in the comments. All right, we'll be right back with an incredible guest on The Boost. All right, welcome back into The Boost, and I am doubly delighted to be here with our guest for today, Don Donahue from Donahue Creates. Don, how are you doing?
Boy, I am great, and I'm pretty blown away by how you've leveled up already. Because I'm, as you know, a fan of what you do. I watch your content, and I got to say, I walked in here and I felt like I was on the Jimmy Fallon show or something. So, way to go. Doing
Thank
great.
you. It's a lot of people around me, and I got to tell a story about you too while we kick things off because this is not a gotcha story. I'll hold that one just in case. No, so we connected a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I'm working on the mental health marketing conference, and I'm just cutting my teeth on learning how to make an event. I certainly want it to be something that cares for the humans in the room, something that educates, something that connects people. And we were also coming out of COVID, so trying to figure out how to do hybrid events the right way. And you offer up, out of the kindness of your heart, this concept called pre-notes. And I want to give you full credit for that because I benefited from an idea that was entirely yours and that we activated, and I got your blessing to go ahead and run with the concept. But it was so strategic. So I want to thank you for that, where we were able to basically extend the experience of the conference outside of the 4 walls and the 3 days that we do it into virtual recordings that they can tap into ahead of time and get a vibe for the conference and the educators. Yeah. So thank you for that. And I want to just throw it to you for the virtual hug, which is the way we start, which is tell us somebody or something you're grateful for.
Woo. You didn't prepare me for any of this.
This
Love
is
it.
this is
Fantastic. Today I am thankful for, I have 5 children. I have 4 biological children and an adopted boy from Haiti. And today I'm thankful for one of my sons. He's a twin. He just turned 27 years old. And he's been dating a girl for 3 years, and she is Chinese. As a family, they moved to Toronto when she was 9. She's now around 23, 24, so she's really Canadian. But they just did 3 weeks in Japan and China, and they did it so great and in such a cool way and documented it so great because we were talking earlier before we rolled camera about how that generation documents everything and then cuts up things and sends these pieces. And what I saw is a man that is my son who is experiencing the world in such a huge way, and the love between he and this woman. When they sent us the recap 14-minute piece of their trip, we had tears in our eyes. And my wife and I, at one point, they did this photo shoot in Shanghai, and it was getting in all of the traditional Chinese garb. And she had her whole makeup done to Chinese makeup, so she's a Westerner. But the metamorphosis of her being done that way and her hair put up, and they put these robes on my son and a samurai sword and all this. And these pictures were just unbelievable. But my wife turned to me and she said, "Did they get married?" Because it looks so beautiful. Yeah. So I have a lot of joy in my heart for seeing your kids at different stages, but then just having an adventure of a lifetime like that. So I'm thankful today for my son, Brennan, and all of my children and my wife.
Nice. What number is he age-wise in the...
So I have a 29-year-old.
Yep.
I have 27-year-old twins, of which he's one. I have a 24-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Awesome. Okay.
So
that's such a lovely virtual hug. I'm always excited about when I hear folks that have 4 or more kids, because I was the 4th. And it was very likely that my parents weren't going to have a 4th. And then they did, and so I'm just always
glad.
I'm glad they got there.
And glad that you're here.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it could have been totally different, but here we are, and what a lovely way to start. So the next thing we do is, after the virtual hug, we do the shameless plug, and then we just get into a flow of conversation. But so that the audience knows more about you, it's best to come from you. So just tell us what you do, some of your experience as it relates to designing events that resonate with humans.
Well, it's a long and winding road, and the singular thread that runs through it all is creativity and artistry, and being behind the scenes, learning a skill set that knows how to recognize things that might resonate with audiences. Started again in the music industry, so picking artists, picking songs, putting them out to radio, putting them on tour, all of that, and had a good track record with that. And it wasn't necessarily easy, but if you knew what you were doing and you knew your audience and you had an ear for talent, then things flowed pretty well. And then, is it okay to bring props?
Do it.
So this, for those of you who are younger than me, is the iPod 1. It came out in October of 2001. It's the original. Look how thick it is. Right? The interesting thing, I found this because we moved a couple of years ago. Found a box, found this, and I was preparing to do a class at Belmont, and they wanted me to come speak to their class about all of these kids that are in the creative arts. Like, can you tell them like what else they can do? So it got me thinking about, well, what is the common thread for me? Well, this put me out of business. This cost me my first job. So for 15 years, I sold CDs, and there's good margin in that. And then all of a sudden the container changed. And the minute I plugged this in, and I had to go back and do some research, but it was October of 2001, and you probably weren't born yet, but
I was born.
It made me think there's no coming back from this.
Yep.
It wasn't a format change. There's no coming back from this because you can't monetize, things digitally. So when I found this, I got my little label maker out and I said, tech will always advance, and so must you. So what that did for me was I keep it on my desk as a reminder that this cost me a job, but it didn't cost me a career, because I had learned the skills of being able to recognize talent, and I've been able to figure out how to put the right people in the right places at the right time. That was the skill that I could transfer and move forward with. My heart always beats for the creative people. My heart always beats for artistry and things like that. But as I get older, I start to see, wow, the artists that have always resonated the most to me are the ones that are what I call layered artists. They're not a person that has one song. They're a person that has a story. They're a person that has multiple things that they can do. They can speak, they can sing, they can draw, creativity flows out of all of us.
Genre even.
Yeah, exactly. And so So long story short, my career after that, and that, by the way, we didn't close the label the day that came out. We tried to morph to where it's going, and where I really figured out that it was going was live events, and where people buy tickets to come and gather under a roof with a shared common interest. So it can be a concert, it can be a truck pull, it can be an evangelical service, it can be anything. But when you buy a ticket to something, you're literally voting to say, I want to be in this room with people that have a common interest and whatever's on the stage or whatever. And it got me thinking about the human condition. So I was a part of a tech startup that helped fans connect from within the audience. We have this in common, we might have more in common. What are the things that we're looking at? So that is what got me first really thinking about the DNA of the fan. And now I would say I'm further along down the road going, it's not a fan so much as it's the human connection. You're in the room because you want to be in the room with people. And that is ultimately end up being a person who designs conferences for a living for all sorts of companies. I mean, the one I'm doing on Monday is for a financial services company, based out of Boston. But they now trust me enough to be able to infuse some of those creative ideas that you thankfully gave credit to me for. Thank you. But they love it because there's so much that can be accomplished by just not being on the stage with a PowerPoint presentation for 45 minutes.
Yeah, we don't want any of that, actually. Like you said, we want to be in the room with the person. We want to be in the room with the person and their story. We want to see the person's story. That's what connects us to the movies and to songs. And you're saying to these artists. And we have a friend, Bob, mutual friend, who has this concept of new technology coming out like that. I'm sure he's probably mentioned this to you, where, like when the CD came out, it killed the tape. And when streaming songs came out, it killed the CD. And technology does that. New tech does that viciously. But what it also does, because as it goes out, if you think about it from physics, it cantilevers. There's this heavy energy on this side, and it cantilevers some old experience or some old technology, right?
It's always about the human condition. It is always about the experience that the human has. And so, he's always good at reminding us about that. So to complete the metaphor that I used with the iPod when I talked to the students at Belmont, was the sky is falling right now over AI. AI is costing jobs, and AI is going to, kill this industry. And in 3 years, this won't exist because AI will be doing it. You know what? Very well may happen. But what are the skill set that you can take forward to utilize that as a boost to your career?
Yeah, it's great advice.
So it's that, that's why I say it. This cost me a job, but it didn't cost me my career. You have to have that pliable mind, and creative people are very good at thinking new thoughts and new angles. And you have to also know that technology is going to march on, and you can't be scared by that. So we want to connect as humans. So I love producing events that are always have the forefront of what happens when the doors open and people walk in the room. Mm-hmm. Something really special happens. I want something really special to happen. And you and I have identified over that. You do too. You care greatly for your attendees.
Yeah, totally. And I believe we're spiraling upward toward, and you can see it across time. Like, we're not farmers anymore, most of us. Worthy, worthwhile career. We've gotten hyper efficient about it. We don't all have to be farmers. When the printing press came out, that destroyed oral tradition. Or it was like, what are we going to do now? Our brains are going to rot because we have all these words on these pages. We don't even have to work anymore. I write a press release in 5 seconds now, and then I edit it and I add some human tone to it and my own voice to it. But we have these leaps of efficiency, but it never gets away from, like you said, the human condition and the connection that we have with each other as humans. And so it is about figuring out our way forward, because I did just see a report that the U.S. workforce is tremendously more productive than it's ever been. Mm-hmm. And there's a danger in that. There's a danger in, at least a perceived short-term danger to our incentives of, oh, it's going to take my job. Well, most likely, but how creative and how big are we thinking about what we can spend our time on? What art and creativity can we make given that we have this new freedom?
And I would venture to say that almost every industry has the ability to apply that thinking to. We were talking a few minutes ago about, studies say there are 5 full generations in the workforce right now, from upper 60s to 20. So there's 5 different generations. Each of them learn differently, were raised differently, are inspired differently, are fulfilled differently. So it's a huge job for a company to be able to say, what can we do that's going to stick to everybody? But the thread that keeps running through it is creative critical thinking, like problem solving through having dialogue and things like that. And it is harder for me sometimes to sell my services to people that are over 50, certainly over 60. They don't necessarily see the value in it right away, but if they trust me enough to give me one session, they'll see the value in it right away. So when I came up with the pre-note idea, that was honestly just something that I made up. And I went, this would be really cool.
Oh, really? Amazing. I thought you had gone into your journal of brilliant ideas. And you're like, here's a breadcrumb, Steve. I'll give you this one.
No, so here was the thought behind that. The thought was because, again, this was post-pandemic, just starting to come back. Because we don't want to sit in the dark and watch somebody speak for 45 minutes, what if we gave you the lion's share of the content that this person's going to talk about up front and let you absorb it however you want to absorb it? Send it out a week or two in advance or all that, and my client said, well, nobody's going to watch that. Well, you can look at statistics, and more than 90% of the people had consumed the content by the time they got to the meeting. Well, then what it did was it gave the person who was on that we shot their content the ability to come back, summarize what they talked about, and then turn to the crowd and get interactivity going. So we had people set intentionally in sections where there needed to be problem solved. So then they became the moderator host. Well, people want to turn in and answer questions. They want to be empowered to answer. They don't want to just be talked to. So that was kind of where the key, so they said to me, we don't think it's going to work, but sure, Don, go give it a try. And it worked in a big way because it gave the attendee the ability to consume the content the way they wanted to.
We're going to take a quick break and come back with much more from Don Donahue right after this. At Turn Productions, we craft experiences that connect, engage, and inspire. They feed the mind, they fill the heart, and they fuel connectivity. From dynamic conferences to powerful podcasts, we bring ideas to life through our proven process of planning, production, and promotion. So your audience doesn't just listen, they remember. Ready to make an impact? Let's build something unforgettable together. Visit turn.productions to get started. All right, welcome back to The Boost and so much more here with Don Donahue. And one big reason you're here, other than being a friend, being an event specialist and strategist, is that I would call you a behavioral artist when it comes to understanding the way people today in our culture need and want events to happen. And I think there's a mental health aspect to that because I've been to hundreds, if not thousands, of conferences. I've stood behind booths, kind of miserable. I've had my brain overflowing with information, with session after session, just stacked on top of each other. And I feel like I don't want to leave, I don't want to miss out, but I get exhausted. 3 hours of content is heavy. So could you talk about the way you think about people in the room and the events you design as it relates to taking good care of the human and their physical health in a way, and also their mental health?
Well, I think COVID was certainly a marker, and I think it, in many ways, some more serious than others, but rewired some of our behaviors. And it takes a lot. It takes more for me to go do something now than it did 5 years ago. Part of that is age, part of that is season of life, and then part of it is just, we just kind of learn to operate in a different way. So when you're asking people to come back and you're asking them to give 2 days of their life or 3 days of their life to come learn something great or attend something that they want to attend, you're pulling them in, and you have to think through the individual. Now, if you have a 300-person conference, you can't have 300 different tracks. But what you can do is think through where is the space that we can build into this that you can take brain breaks. You have to have it. You can't turn on for 3 hours. You just can't do it.
Or now everything is hybrid, so how do you entice people to be like, I could sit at home in my PJs and watch this online, or why would I want to come to the in-person? So like, what's going to entice me
And
to come in?
and we do know, I mean, if you're brave enough to go ahead and go, it is going to be a richer experience. And I produce virtual experiences and in-person experiences. But I'm a big believer that the way that we network and get to know each other has to be relational first and transactional third, fourth, or fifth.
Yeah, it's the Maya Angelou quote. It's they don't care what you know until they know you care, right? Like it's on every other greeting card, but it's because it's true.
So when you're in the room, how do you find the people that you have, you know, that you're similar to? Now, one of the things you said that I liked was you can't stay on for long periods of time, but you also feel like, well, I'm wasting my money if I need to go to my hotel room for a half hour and just stare at a wall, you know, because I need the social cleanse, and then I'm recharged to go back. So meeting planners in general have been paying attention to that, and they are building more in post-COVID than they did pre.
More like
you know.
breaks, you would say, where it's a
Breaks,
shorter.
or even like rooms, you know, like quiet rooms,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like there's or
Respite room.
physical activities that they do things, technology-free zones, things like that. So there's definitely a psychology to how the behavior translates to a meeting, and it should translate as well to an office space. How things are maybe programmed through your workday, and you know, hybrid, in person, all that. But I may be your guest that brings the most props, but I'm bringing another prop. So I went to an event, and they had me fill out a button at registration, and they said, give us 7 things about you that are 7 meaningful things for you. And they had a list
cool,
of about
good to wear.
150 people. 150 activities. So I mean, it's embarrassing to say I'm an event planner, but I was like, I don't want to do this. You know, it's like, but I went ahead and I did it.
It's on there.
Went ahead and I did it. And I filled this button out. They gave it to me at registration, and it's got a QR code on the back. And I just put it on my shirt and forgot about it. And about 15 minutes later, I'm on the trade show floor, and this guy comes up. He goes, "Hey, Don, what's your favorite podcast?" And I went, I don't know you. How do you know I like podcasts? Well, that's the second thing on my button. So I've been getting to know this company really well, because I think this is really smart. There's psychology behind everything in this. This grabs your eye and pulls you in. This calls out your name. And then the way that this shape happens is the way that your eye's drawn to things. So it's done in a way that is going to pull it out. So mine, I literally just did this really fast, so these are embarrassing to read, but it said NFL, podcast, genealogy, event planning, creative consulting, meditation, and kids. So at some point during most of this event, someone would stop and ask me a question about something that is meaningful to me. They're making a personal connection with me. And I will talk to you, as I did early in this podcast. I'll talk to you about my kids all day long. I'll tell you about my top 5 podcasts all day long. Then on the back, you hit this QR code, and it has a back end on it that sources everybody that has similar interest in you. So if bourbon is one of yours, hey, we got 3 hours off. Who wants to go to this distillery and have a bourbon? You got this ability to interact through this QR code just for the people that filled out this button. And I just thought so I've been getting to know the CEO of this company, because to me, this is a human first movement.
Nice.
Human first.
Well, and there's something like there's psychology with wearing a name tag, because, you know, when someone introduces themselves and the name just goes away,
Gone.
But if you're a visual learner, seeing the name on you next to your face is just going to help you remember that person's name. And then you have such a more personal interaction when you say, hey, Don, as opposed to like,
100%.
hey,
Again,
you.
it's getting to know Don,
Yeah.
not Don's company
Absolutely.
or what Don's trying to sell you or what Don, it's just getting to know Don. So once I get to know her, she goes, look, events are one thing, but her big vision is she wants to sell this to universities and companies. So office nameplates, same thing, your name and the 7 things that you're interested in personally. But dorm rooms are huge. So you get in, you move your kid into school, and on the dorm is your
It's all
kid's
their
first
stuff.
name. It's all of that. Then that QR code is all the people that like pickleball form a league, and we need 3 people. You know, you go on the back end and do it. I'm like, all this is doing is grabbing people's human interests, and I just believe it's the most human-centric thing I've seen at events. So this causes us to begin to have conversations about who we are as people, which naturally then extends to, well, what do you do and what lights you up professionally?
I love that. I would love
Yeah.
to do that idea next time.
Well, I was gonna say in technology, you think about it like separating people, and that's such a beautiful way to use technology to bring people together in a like in real life, in person way.
So we've mentioned our friend Bob a few times that, you know, he's obviously from the psychology side, he loves this, but we were talking about the college, the dorm placard, if you will. And he gave me this article, and he said one of the fastest trends happening with people taking their kids to college right now is kids are coming home before school starts. The kids that graduated high school during the pandemic, the kids that get to a big university and 2 weeks in, you know, that's when they're rushing fraternities. You know, it's not really school when you first go.
And they feel
There's
that
this
social
massive
anxiety and they wanna
movement
leave.
that they're moving home before they even start class.
Oh wow.
And he sent me the article with the statistics, which I forwarded to her, just saying, you're onto something. Because if that kid then can find their people, there's probably a better chance that they're going to stick it out. Because you're right, there's a big gap in the way that we couldn't be together for a couple of years. And we don't know all the ramifications that that's going to have. So I think anytime you can make a human touch, it's going to really matter to people.
Yeah. Wow.
Sarah and I are actually both reading a book called The Anxious Generation, and it compares kids, I think specifically Gen Z, kind of that age, to an analogy of putting them on Mars, essentially, without all the resources they need. And they compare that to the way that the internet and social media was just a simple permission form away from access. Are you 18? Yes. You know, you can't do that with alcohol. You can't do that with cigarettes, not even a lottery ticket, but you can just do it online. And I haven't finished the book, so I can't speak comprehensively to it, but it keeps pulling me in because, and I don't know if you have an insight from that book as far as you've read, but we set some kids up for a real challenge. And part of that was COVID, which we couldn't control. And then part of that was this absolute, almost utter belief in technology being net positive for us at the end of the day, and full access and more access, and unrestricted access in many cases. And you have to say there's going to be some impact on that.
Yeah. Well, also affecting like how you socialize. It's just a totally different way of socializing. And I'm right in the beginning of it too, but about your relationships being disposable, that like you have trouble just building those relationships with people. And so you're going to school, and that's actually a learned trait of how to socialize and how to build those connections. And if you're constantly just doing it digitally on a phone, you're not learning how to have those interactions, and it scares you, and it gives you that social anxiety. And if you don't feel well and you don't feel welcome, you don't want to stay. And so, I think being in person and having those things that you're saying to connect is going to give you that little nudge in where you feel comfortable and you can start to learn how to socialize instead of feeling that social anxiety. And
It's a real natural place to start of what interests you, and do we have anything in common, you know? And then
icebreaker. You know?
it's a great icebreaker because again, human first, you know. And so then you get to the professional world and you go, yes, the mental health marketing conference is about people that's their vocation, that's what they do, but that's 10% of who they are, and you're a person who is doing crazy things, to get people to go beyond that. Yes, you're going to get equipped with the tools that you need, but the way that your brain thinks is you're trying to get people to try different things. And I forget about the broken cup ceremony or the tea or whatever that was a couple of years ago. That was brilliant. It's like
Make something beautiful out of something broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I want to do in an event is two things. I definitely want to smooth out the potholes first. So I want your experience to make you feel welcome and comfortable. And so everything from registration to the chair to where you can put your coffee to finding your way, not feeling lost, to feeling seen. And that's what I love about that button. It's like, here I am, I can see you, you can see me. And then I want to take them to the mountain. Not the entire time. We don't live up on the mountain. It's not like just apex. There has to be a rise and fall to that. But I want people to be surprised and delighted by something that happens that they did not see coming, because I believe that unlocks some dopamine and some things in us that lets us realize that there's more here than we may be aware of. It surpasses our expectations, and I love to under-deliver, under-promise, over-deliver.
Sure.
That's always in the back of my head. What about your events? It could be like a technology thing, or it could be just an event design thing. Like how do you craft kind of the flow of an event as it relates to the people in the room?
Well, I mean, it obviously begins with a deep listening session of who are you, what do you want to get accomplished? And one of the things, especially for companies that have multiple meetings that I work with, is that's a little strong. Most people do not begin with the question, why are we meeting? Well, it's February. We always have our national meeting in February. Well, what do you want to get accomplished at the end of that meeting? Well, we do breakout. Like, they're not thinking through, why are we meeting? There's expense, there's a whole bunch, but we're not. So if you're an event, I do not call myself an event planner. I'm more of an event designer. But if I don't have a seat at the table when they're coming up with that, then the product's going to get weaker because it's going to get passed down to me to fulfill. And then if I have a really creative breakthrough idea, it's much harder to sell it because I'm not sitting at the table originally, at the beginning to ask the question, why are we meeting? Mm-hmm. If I know what you want to have accomplished when they leave the meeting, I can help you reverse engineer something that really helps. Mm-hmm. Part of that is utilizing technology in its right way, whether that is gamification or voting or polling or things like that. All of that stuff can give you real-time data of what people are into and not into, and what did they resonate with, all of those things. So that can happen in real time. But what I've noticed is when you put someone up I would just have a saying that the goal of a great session is to keep people off their phone for 10 minutes. You're not going to keep them off the phone for 20 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. And even, I think about that.
Yeah.
The most compelling speaker in the world, if I get distracted by my phone vibrating, I'm distracted. Mm-hmm. Now, we're doing something at this event next week that we are having a technology-free zone for networking with these buttons, where the idea is we are providing charging stations around these sections, and that's where you put your technology.
Okay, you put it down, then you enter the zone.
Got to put it down, then you go in the zone, and then you go talk to people. And of course that's hard to do because we're all tethered to our phone.
Well, it feels like a crutch because I don't know if you notice, if anytime you feel like uncomfortable, you're in a space where you don't know anyone, you immediately, like, if you act like you're on your phone, you just feel comfortable.
And the statistics.
I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I feel that way.
Totally, to the point where I feel weird. I was in some kind of waiting room or something the other day, and I wasn't on my phone. I was just sitting there, and everybody else was, and I thought, I bet they think I'm weird. Like, what could he possibly be thinking about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you guys may know more than me, but you see these statistics of, we access our phone 161 times a day or something like that. There's these
your phone
ridiculous.
will show you what you most click for too. Like it'll say the first thing you did when you opened your phone.
crazy.
And looking at your own data will shock you. I'm telling you.
So,
I haven't yet, but now.
so,
Go look.
so in the event world is hard because you need it because it can measure so much, but you also need, let's go back to you need the break, you need the space. So, advising people and not just saying to them, not saying to them, tell people they can't bring their phone to this session. Come up with a solution that takes the phone out of their hand for a period of time. We have it'll be interesting to see. We'll have a follow-up, and I'll let you know how this works. But we have a coaching team coming in from the University of Chicago, and I get an order, because I'm the producer of the show, that they need 5 throwable microphones. And they're these big square foam microphones.
Microphone?
They're big
we
square.
need
I have
that?
one right now. No, don't.
They're big square foam microphones, and we've got them branded. And I don't know what they're going to do with them, but my assumption is I got a question. Oh, you got an answer? Boom. They throw it out to
Fun.
you.
I love that.
Cool.
I'm like, okay, that's going to be cool to see. That
You're like, you better be
creates
good at catching.
interactivity. So my production guys, showed they showed me a picture of it. They texted me a picture, and it looked great. And I was like, looks wonderful. A, does it work? B, will you throw it against a brick wall 10 times and then tell me if it still works? Because what I don't want
give
to have.
everybody a net, like a little butterfly net. And
But it's just like, okay,
Giant baseball gloves.
Then-
Everybody's got giant baseball gloves.
then that says to me, you're going to need to be on your toes during that session.
That would keep me alert.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That
that
would keep
beach
me
ball
alert.
is coming my way.
You just don't know.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. The 2 ideas that come to mind when you say that is keeping people's attention. We did an application of Parkinson's law, which is the work gets done in the time allowed. So it's the presentation gets done in the time allowed. So we did 10-minute stingers, and the person just gets up on stage, they start, they go, they have a deck or they don't have a deck, and it's done when it's done. And that was
Good.
a lot of fun. It was a little break, but everybody held the attention. And then the other thing we did, this was 2 years ago when AI was very nascent and we're all trying to figure it out. It's kind of a toy we get to play with, but otherwise we're afraid of it. So we did a debate where, we picked a pro side and an anti side, or, the speakers at least did their homework on those positions. And it created this tension, and we love argument. We love to watch tensions, and so it let people pick a side and be a little honest with themselves about where do I fall, rather than here's all the benefits, to using AI in your marketing. It's like, no, we got to explore the dark side of this a little bit.
I really think what you're getting to is it's okay for people to be uncomfortable in discussion as long as they're safe and moderated and things like that. I mean, that's when I learn the most, is when somebody who I respect gives a counterpoint that I hadn't thought of before. Again, isolation that we've talked about, the little theme of this, puts you in the place where you're only going to learn what you can learn by yourself. You're always going to be better in a collaborative environment. So a word that I use a lot is I want there to be resonance in the room. I want there to be connectivity. At some level, there's a vibration that connects us all when we're in a room together. There's resonance in the room. And I go back to that when the label first started going away, and I thought, that's what happens when you buy a ticket to a show. You're saying, I want to be in the same room with people who like the same thing I do. Well, if I'm sitting next to somebody and we like the same band, if we just said hello to each other, if we just did this, I'll bet because we like this band, there's 3 or 4 more things we have in common. And then you're making a connection. So I don't know. I think event production, it's funny. I have a new website that I have not push publish on yet, because every day I think the headline's wrong, because I don't want to say that I'm an event planner. I don't want to say that I'm a creative coach.
But that speaks to your artistic side, because artists never feel like anything's ever complete.
That's right. And but it's also, I don't want to be confusing. So there's some level of just what I'm an advocate for is exactly what we're doing right now. You're teaching me some things. You're hearing some things from me. We're going to get some feedback from this. All of those things are good things. And I like, as I said earlier, layers of people that have different things. We're mainly on a podcast that is focused a lot on mental health. talking about its use within something like a corporate event. Those aren't those aren't natural bedfellows, so it's cool that we're thinking about these things in everything that we do. So collaboration is huge. I just love collaborating with people.
And in mental health, there's a big concept around what's called clinical alignment, which is if a therapist is in the room with you and can see you, or maybe has even experienced your experience or something similar to it, I think it's one reason why there are a lot of people in addiction treatment who have been through some form of addiction, and then they come back full circle, go through that journey, and then they give back to other people. It's because there's this alignment. So, collaboration is wonderful. I'm all about that too, collaborating, connecting, but then also the biggest magic, I think, even in a clinical setting, is somebody who can see you and see your story and give you that space and grace to say, yeah, you be you. Of course, we want to work on how to improve and how to be better, and we're doing that here. I've loved connecting with you today. But I think it is extremely about mental health, actually, and we don't have to be clinical to be really effective advocates.
Well, but the times that I have been in therapy have been creative breakthroughs for me. They've been personal breakthroughs. I mean, I would go to either talk therapy for a particular stressor that I'm going through, or things like that. But I was in a season, probably 3 or 4 years ago, where I saw somebody for about 6 months, and he got to know me very well, and he redirected some negative thinking that I had about myself in a way that was profound. And he just asked me a simple question. He said, tell me one thing you want to improve on. And, so I kept sitting there thinking, and I said, you know what? I make things so much harder than they need to be. And I don't know why. And he said, well, give me an example. So I gave him an example of when I ran a record label. It was a Christian record label, and it was right about the time when everything was moving to worship music. And that's what the whole genre was moving to, and that's how you stayed in business. And that never resonated with my heart, to kind of go, okay, I just got to go shift everything. I like storytellers. So now I'm going to go shift. So I used to use this metaphor. I don't ever go through the front door. I always go through the side window. It's like, and he heard that, and I said, I just kind of refused to do this. It didn't feel natural. It felt forced. It felt commercial. You're a whole bunch of things. He goes, well, can I make an observation? I said, well, that's what I'm paying you for, yes. He said, I don't think you make things harder than you need to be. I think you're a futurist. You're thinking about where it's going. You're not thinking about jumping on the train that it is right now. And I even still don't like to tell that story very much because it sounds a little grandiose, but he was right. So I might not use the word futurist because that's got a lot to it, but what he was saying was, I'm not the type of person who's going to just jump on a trend to jump on a trend.
That should be on your button and also my button. Like, we would connect over that.
What's that, futurist?
Futurist.
Yeah.
Or like ideas. Does that fall under like an ideas person, where you're thinking really far in the future that you have trouble getting the steps to get there, or the?
Correct. Yeah.
That's one of my biggest problems is just waiting for it to happen.
Right.
And I can't always know what the future is. I'm not an oracle, but if you look,
You can't jump over stuff. You need people to help you get all the stepping stones together.
or just wait for it to flow down the river to me. Like, the biggest thing is, here it comes. I can't go toward it. It's just got to come to me. But
And you said that really well. That's I get impatient. Why can't everybody else see this the way that I see that it's going to be? So. And then just one other therapy story. I had a friend who's a prominent screenwriter in Los Angeles and is currently writing a massive show for Netflix. And he told me, he said he woke up, this is a couple years ago, he woke up one day completely blocked. Biggest budget that Netflix has ever put out. Hundreds of cast members everywhere.
Yeah.
He's writing it, producing it, doing the whole thing. And somebody told him about a certain therapist that was a hypnotherapist that he went to. He said in 3 sessions, completely unblocked, and finished the season in 3 sittings. And so he gifted me 3 sessions with this guy. I'm like, I'll try anything, so it was very interesting. And I learned so much.
Did you do all 3?
I did. I did all 3. And we did 3 different things each time. And they were all fascinating. I mean, I don't think I was unblocked and wrote a big Netflix show, the minute, but I trusted him to take me somewhere that could solve a problem for me. And we've all got wounds, we've all got traumas, and we're all trying to get better. And so that helps me have empathy for the people that are creating art. As you said a few minutes ago, it is really brave to release anything. Artists guard everything.
Yeah.
It is brave to put something into the world to be judged. And I'm a big advocate of saying, let me be part of the team that can help you be brave.
Yeah, and humans are such like social creatures, and so you try to do everything on your own. And like therapy, yes, going to an actual therapist is helpful, and even just bouncing ideas off of someone else. Like there was a time I showed something to Steve that I was working on. I've been working on it for hours and hours and hours, and he looks at it one time. It was like, oh, you just need to change this, and I was
Unblocked.
like,
Yep.
Steve, you just changed the whole presentation. And it's just because we're just such social creatures.
Yeah.
And we rely on each other to grow, and doing it on your own is never gonna be fruitful.
No. Steve was your AI.
You were my
He just
AI.
fixed it for you.
You've been my AI. You've been my AI.
I typed it right in.
I think we've all improved and helped each other. And Don, it's been a pleasure. I hate that we have to wrap, but thank you for coming on the show and sharing your expertise. I've just connected with you this last hour. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks for being on.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing to give people the chance to be better and mentally healthier. You guys are doing something great, and I hope this reaches a ton of people.
Me
Pleasure to be on.
too. Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
And thanks for listening in. Until next time, we'll see you then.